competent man. There's something wrong with him. Okay, there's something wrong with him. And when you look at what he's done with Somalia, which is barely a country, they have no anything. They just run around killing each other. No structure. And when I see somebody like Ilhan Omar, who I don't know at all, but I always watch her for years. I've watched her complain about our Constitution, how she's being treated badly. Our Constitution, the United States of America, is a bad place. It hates everybody, hates Jewish people, hates everybody. And I think she's an incompetent person. She's a real terrible person. But when I watch what is happening in Minnesota, the land of 1,000 lakes or however many lakes they have, they got a lot of lakes, but this beautiful place, and I see these people ripping it off, and now I'm understanding, and you're going to look at that's, I hear they ripped off Somalians, ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year, billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I can say that about other countries too. I can say it about other countries too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. Our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. They came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Are you having trouble trying to keep up with your professor? You've got to try Otter. Here's how it works. Let's say I'm in class.
Okay, well, I hope you were able to hear your president imparting his wisdom regarding Somalia. Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, who is Somali American. So he expresses that his opinion of her and, of course, of her community. I wanted to start off with that because, as you know, this edition of Faith, Family, and Political Affairs is entitled Racism, Rage, and the Real Reason for the Season. So welcome. This is going to be our final edition of Faith, Family, and Political Affairs for the year for 2025. And so I just wanted to touch upon some of what I feel are some of the major issues going on right now, but also wanted to remember that this is the Christmas season and that, we have made it through almost another full year. The Christmas season is sort of a wonderful way to wrap up the year. And for those of us who are Christian, of course, we celebrate the birth of the Savior, Jesus Christ. And we celebrate it in a number of ways. You can see my Christmas tree in the background, of course. But then we give gifts to one another, reminiscent of or paying homage to the gifts that were brought to Jesus at his birth. Um, and so there are many, many ways that we celebrate. Of course, we take the gift giving a little bit farther with Santa Claus and all of that. That's commercialism, and we as Americans embrace it, and our children certainly do embrace it, and grandchildren. So I wanted to talk about some of the terrible stuff that's going on, but I just really want to also remember that we still have a lot to be grateful for, having almost made it through another full year. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about racism. I started with, I call him your president. I don't like to claim him, but I just have to say that, Donald Trump has been on the scene in America for many, many years. He's embroiled right now with the Epstein, release of the Epstein files. And people say it like it's so, mysterious. But it's like pictures of him hanging out with Epstein, uh, pictures. And Epstein, was convicted, known pedophile. Known. I mean, and a woman is in jail right now, Ghislaine Maxwell, serving time for having, aided and abetted him in these crimes. And so it happens that the president was great friends with this man for years, years and years and years. And there are pictures and apparently video to support that. So, his group, the Make America Great Again people, the MAGAs, they have always insisted that they wanted to reveal to the world everything about Epstein and that pedophile ring and all of that. That it was their goal to, they were like the champions of unveiling that until it has come to light that their leader, is all over the files, and, there's no question about it now. There may be some question as to how far his involvement went, what his role was with some of the girls and young women who were assaulted, demeaned, diminished, abused. Um, and all is documented, and many of the women who were girls at the time are still alive, and they've talked to people in Congress, and some of them have written their own accounts of what has gone down. And I don't have too much to say about that. I think that the universe is going to handle that. Um, you can't kill Epstein because he's already dead. Okay. He happened to have died mysteriously during the Trump administration while being incarcerated. There's still some question as to, from his brother Mark, as to whether or not he actually committed suicide. But then that's a whole nother, conversation that listen, I did not follow the Epstein stuff, even when they were saying that, the Democrats, the Clintons were involved. I wasn't following Epstein at the time. The Epstein story. I've only paid attention to it since this man is president. And quite honestly, his involvement with Epstein, it's like one more mark beside his name if you're keeping count of the truly offensive nature of this person. Okay, so I will let the universe handle, how the Epstein situation works out for him. Already I liken him to Marley, and to Scrooge. The whole Christmas story of Scrooge, the Christmas Carol story, where Scrooge had a business partner in his life and Marley. And Marley has gone on, to the other life. He's passed on. But he comes back to haunt Scrooge during Christmas to say, will you change your ways? You know, I'm already gone. I'm paying this tight, this, how you pay for the deeds that we do. And, Trump sort of reminds me of Scrooge in that story, in that Epstein seems to be coming back from the grave to haunt him. And will he pay attention? Will he get it right? I think that, as a Christian, God just gives us so many opportunities, to get it right. And it's up to us whether or not we heed those opportunities or whether or not we continue to behave as though we have the final say and that we are in charge of everything. And so Trump to me is like Scrooge. And Epstein is his Marley, and he's haunting him. And he's saying, will you admit that you did this stuff? Or are you going to continue to be as belligerent and as insulting to people and as offensive and as racist and as misogynist, all those terms, are you going to do that, or will you consider going another way? I look at things realistically, I think, but I also sometimes I look at things through the prism of my faith. That's what this program is, Faith, Family, and Political Affairs. And because I've been so baffled by Trump and the capitulation of our systems, our legal system is maybe the one system that's holding up, but our legislatures, our Congress has all but capitulated to Trump. And I look at that and I keep looking for why this is happening. Why? Why is the universe allowing him to have the one of the top spots in the world, the presidency of the United States, and he's held it twice. And yet he continues to he made the shithole statements. Forgive me for people who don't believe in profanity, because I really prefer not to, but it's this climate. He's used that statement before, that term, and he caught some heat for it back in his first term. So you would think that a person would rethink it, okay, revisit it, and not do it again. But instead, he repeats it. Now we have a 2025 version of him referring to countries that are mostly for darker skinned people in the world. We're referring to them as shithole countries. And very specifically to call Ilhan Omar, Representative Ilhan Omar, to call her garbage. And then to say all that are associated with her, the entire community, is such. But then did you listen? We know that he is offensive. We know that he's a guy of privilege. He's led a privileged life. so much that he can be convicted of 34 felonies and still rise to the highest office of the land twice. When my beloved um, social commentator Bill Cosby was um, found to be guilty of some egregious behavior, guess what happened to him? He was put in prison, okay, even at an advanced age with some medical conditions. And Bill Cosby was much loved, has been, by so many people. You know, he gave us Fat Albert, the cartoon that we grew up with. He gave us A Different World, The Cosby Show, you know, much beloved. But did he get this kind of grace that Trump is enjoying? Even in the face of the Epstein stuff, he continues to be president of the United States. He has been impeached, but he has not been successfully removed from the office of the presidency. And these impeachments have not humbled him one bit. In fact, they seem to fuel his um, grandiose behavior and his offensiveness, and maybe even his bigotry and his racism. And I continue to ask the question, why is our country allowing it? Beyond that, why is the universe, why is God allowing it? And those of you who follow this broadcast of mine, you know that I very frequently talk about prayer. I believe in the power of prayer. And this whole situation in America has been subject of my prayers for the past, for as long as this man has been in office. In fact, I started on that day that he was inaugurated, because of Project 2025. As they say in the faith community, I had given him over to God then. And so I've been somewhat surprised at what he's been able to accomplish. He was anointed by many, many ministers of the evangelical portion of Christian faith. And he was anointed. They prayed over him and everything when he came into office. However, God does things in his own time. And I just wonder, is he giving this man a chance, an opportunity to get it right, to change? But right before the world, this man is saying, I will not change. We are all witnessing, his refusal to change. And so whatever comes of him, you have to say it's his own doing, whether it's failing health that people keep referring to or something else. I mean, we don't know. Maybe it's conviction over the Epstein stuff, because right now our Congress still has another release from the Epstein estate, of documents, photos, videos, and everything. That again, it is reported that the president is highly, represented in these pieces of material. So I had intended not to talk very long about him, but when he made the garbage statement, I just felt that I needed to address that. And I hope that there will be others who are reflecting on why is one man allowed to just be insulting in this way? Um, I think the universe is going to handle him. I think God will ultimately uh, handle him. And I think the assessment at the end of the day will be very different from just a political assessment. I think there will be some spiritual um, reckoning for not just for him, but also for our country. I do think that America will have to pay for what he has done. Um, Not just in terms of loss of our own freedoms, which we are seeing people being disappeared, arrested on the streets, women thrown to the ground with two or three men putting their knees in these women's backs, handcuffed, you know. And so we're seeing that. We're witnessing it. And there are not very many of us who could say we didn't know it was going down. We know that it's going down. And first it was the Hispanics, and now the Somalis in Minnesota, their community is under fierce attack right now. But of course, this president has released troops, National Guard troops, into major cities, Chicago, DC, So we're already, the posse comitatus rule that was supposed to be law of the land, he's violated that many, many times. So again, the question, why is he being allowed to do this? When we have structures in place that are supposed to stop it. Okay, so enough on him. But the comment about Ilhan Omar being she's Somali American, and I have to say, online, so many of the African American commentators are pointing out that many of the Somalis, particularly that group in the community in Minnesota, did vote for Trump. And much like many in the Hispanic community, they have effed around and found out what Trump really thinks of them and their community. All you have to do is just go on social media. I mean, it's all over Facebook, not so much Facebook, but certainly Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. There are people who are making sure that they point out the fact that many of the Somalis, either they were duped by Trump. We just do not understand it and I say we, it's African American. Some of it we understand that sometimes it's more expedient when you come to America to not associate with us. I'm sorry, but it's a temporary thing. If you're brown, if your skin color looks anything like me, you might be able to assimilate for a minute with the other culture, with the greater culture, the larger majority culture, but ultimately you will understand the prejudices that exist, that are real. We don't make this stuff up. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, Brown v. Board of 1954. We can trace for you our trek from slavery to Jim Crow to a semblance of freedom and equality. And each time that it seems that it's smoothing out and that we can relax and rest, somebody tries, there's an attempt to reverse. I remember when I was in college, it was the Bakke case. And we began to hear the term reverse discrimination. And because so many African Americans were making a real mark in colleges and universities around the country, certainly at our HBCUs, but at many of the predominantly white institutions. Where that's what I went to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro that for my bachelor's degree, and that was predominantly white institution. Of course, it was right down the street from North Carolina A&T, which is a well-known HBCU. But during those years, we had to deal with the Bakke case and reverse discrimination. And whenever you got a job, it was always wondered if people were wondering if you were the diversity hire. It wasn't called DEI, you know, and if you were the token or whatever, it was never assumed that you were disqualified and you beat the pants off of some white folk to get there. It was just never, just assume that. So, but we brush that stuff off our shoulders and we keep it moving. We know that if you work hard, you qualified, you go in the place despite what people say, you go in the place, you do your best. Okay, you know. So, I wanted to start out this edition with a conversation about racism because after President Barack Obama was in office for 2 terms, so many people thought that racism had been cured in our country. And certainly we made some great strides, but how quickly it is being turned back and how viciously this president is behaving. And if you will notice, when he made the statement about the garbage, about Representative Omar and her community, when he made that statement, the people in the room applauded. You see. So this is indeed a new day. What is acceptable has changed like magic right before our eyes. It is acceptable for the cabinet of the President of the United States to be amused and to laugh aloud when he calls a sitting representative garbage and refers to her community as garbage. None of those people have been removed from office. They are all still in office. And they found his comment to be amusing. And that is where we are in the United States of America today. In the year of our Lord, 2025, fast approaching 2026. So that's my comment about racism. So now we'll move on to rage. That is the title of this edition. Racism, rage, and the real reason for the season. I have to repeat that. On my flyer prepared for this edition, I flipped the MAGA hat upside down, and that was the symbol for me of rage. And I think that why are they so angry? This group of people. Why do they want to relitigate the Civil War? Why do they want to restore the Confederacy? Why are they so angry? MAGA. I mean, those are questions that I ask myself. I say, why? To pretend that this country did not lose a lot of life fighting the Civil War. And a lot of Black people were lynched and burned and just disappeared, buried, and, you know, homes bombed, and just to get beyond that. So why would you want to go back to that? Why would you want to revisit that? And why would you want to pretend that this group of people, African Americans now, did not contribute what they've contributed? Why would you want your children to learn a lie? Because we discovered that what you were taught was a lie. Because there was a Black Wall Street, you know. And right after the Civil War, there were Black people in Congress. So, once you know the truth, and then you decide, well, hey, we're going to deny the truth and bury the truth and burn the truth and change the truth, you're teaching your children that it's feasible, that it makes sense to live a lie. And even if you keep your children only in the United States of America, because outside of America, everybody knows the truth. So to me, you're handicapping your children, your own children, by teaching them a lie or not teaching them the full truth. Just this week, it would be funny if it weren't so terrible. This administration declared that all national parks will no longer recognize the Martin Luther King holiday, which they were giving, free passes to people on that day. And they will no longer recognize Juneteenth, which is the day that many slaves in the South learned of their freedom 2 years after the Civil War had ended. So the national parks have been allowing people to enter free on Juneteenth and on the King holiday. And this administration, in its brilliance and its love of unity and harmony and all of the American ideals, has decided that those dates will no longer be free entrance into the parks, the national parks. Instead, guess what? The president's birthday. You cannot make it up. The president's birthday is now, a day of free entrance into the national parks. Here's the thing. As much as this president disparages anything that was accomplished by Barack Obama in his 2 terms, he also seems to want to go as far back as abolishing everything that Dr. King was able to accomplish, including the Voting Rights Act. With all the gerrymandering, with his call to various states to say, I want these district maps changed. So, African Americans, we're already clear. We know that we're under assault. Again, I go back again to the faith part of this. How many stories in the Bible just plainly state, in parables a lot of times, that when those who have a lot of power choose to continually demean, diminish, abuse, attack, kill, murder, disappear those who do not have power, God will step in. God will fight that battle. You remember that Moses before the Pharaoh, let my people go. MAGA people, they just insisted they're Christians. I wonder if they forget. God is for the person without the power, without the money, because that's where God has an opportunity to show who he is. Jesus walking into the temple and turning over the table of the moneymakers, the people who were trading, making too much money in the temple that's supposed to be about prayer. And look at all the money these people are just making while they steal livelihood, the livelihood from working class people. And I mean, food stamps and housing and health care, they don't mind taking away from working class people. So I pay attention to the universe. What is God doing right now? Because they can fool around and find out. They can fool around and find out who God is. So anyway, rage. And I just wanted to, there are a couple of things that I wanted to make sure that I talk about. Megyn Kelly, oh my God, I had to just mention her. Why is Megyn Kelly so mad at Black women? Megyn Kelly, for those of you who may not know it, um, used to be a respectable journalist. I never followed her career, but she was pretty prominent. And Trump even attacked her a couple of times. He didn't like her because she was very much, a serious journalist. And I guess he scared her so bad. He scared her straight to MAGA. And now she's like a MAGA mistress. I mean, she's like, whatever they do is okay with her. But her latest thing is to attack Black women, especially Michelle Obama. But she has attacked the sports caster Jemele Hill. Um, she has attacked Kamala Harris. And she doesn't say the nicest things. She gets very personal. She talks about makeup and our hair. And Megyn Kelly needs some Black women friends. I'm sorry. Megyn Kelly is she's a dangerous woman, but I think she's a dangerous woman because she has such a megaphone. She's everywhere talking, saying this ignorance, spewing, you know, hatred, and aimed particularly at Black women. And I wonder what Black woman beat her out for a job or something. Um, Maybe she had designs on the president, on President Obama, and wasn't able to, you know, because Michelle Obama is no joke. So because she used to just talk about President Obama. And so how Michelle was not worthy of him and that kind of thing. And so it feels very personal for her. And I have to say that, for many public figures, and this has gone back to the 80s, the way that they make their bones, so to speak, the way they become more famous is to attack Black women, prominent Black women. They know that if they can single out and say something really ugly about a Black woman, then others, that makes them look tough to some people. And so that's what they do. I remember Sister Soldier was attacked that way when she was very prominent. That was in the late 80s. She was attacked, and people were able to become more well known and more likable because they were bold enough to attack her. She's a very strong activist for the Black community. Then Sister Soldier, look her up, Google her name. But she was attacked. Whoopi Goldberg has been attacked. Remember when she did The Color Purple? Everybody was not receptive of that, of the theme of that movie. Young girls being assaulted by people in their families. Which isn't it odd how that has come back around with the Epstein stuff? Young girls being sexually assaulted. That was one of the themes of The Color Purple. Google that. That brought Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey to prominence, national prominence. Of course, Oprah had already been well known in Chicago, but she became nationally prominent after The Color Purple, directed by Steven Spielberg. But just go Google some of that. It's old history, it's contemporary history. But it has a context now because that theme of young girls being assaulted by men was a strong thing that some of the women who acted in that movie were attacked about. And now we come back and it's the Epstein story. Because the blood, the hurt, this stuff must be answered for. Again, the stuff that we're doing right now as a country, disappearing people. The Trump administration thinks it's funny to send a woman to separate her from her young children in a car, take her away and ship her to a whole nother state. And most recently, we've had a child, I think he was 7 years old, sent to a whole nother state. Because the children are put into detention too when their parents are held into and taken into detention. The children are also sometimes put into detention. So that is my comment on the rage piece. Why are these people so angry? They remind me of, you remember the term road rage? When a person is just on the road and somebody pulls in front of them without signaling and they get a gun out and shoot into the car. I mean, this is a response. This is the extreme nature of the response of the MAGA people. And now they have a dilemma because Trump is all over the Epstein files. They have a dilemma. So Marjorie Taylor Greene is now fighting with Trump publicly. Many of the commentators, Mark Levine and Megyn Kelly, they're all kind of out there fighting with one another. Praise God. Again, the universe will handle some of this. These attacks, now they're fighting among themselves. And the rest of us are like, hey, let's order some more popcorn because this movie is about to get really, really good. So anyway, now, I did want to just mention some people who are doing some excellent, excellent work around birthright citizenship and the 14th Amendment. Because this administration has also made an attempt to get rid of um, birthright citizenship. They are saying that it's about stopping illegal immigrants from coming over, having babies, and becoming citizens and taking up all of our resources. Birthright citizenship, please look it up. Please Google it or ask Siri about it. Please ask Siri about the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States and the serious nature of it. There is a wonderful, wonderful lawyer named Elie Mystal who, go to YouTube. He's on there all over it talking about this amendment. And also Sherilyn Ifill. Just giving some incredible insight in plain language that anybody can understand. You don't have to be a lawyer to understand the serious nature. If Trump is able to end birthright citizenship, that resonates for African Americans also, because the 14th Amendment came to us following the Civil War and the abolition of slavery. And I just wanted to read just a little bit about the 14th Amendment to hopefully encourage you to go and search it out for yourself. The 14th Amendment was ratified, that means became law in 1868. Okay, and just not long, a few years after the Civil War ended. And I'm reading this from Google. The 14th Amendment granted citizenship and equal civil and legal rights to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including formerly enslaved people. Also establishing principles like due process. States could no longer deprive anyone of life, liberty, property without a legal process. Of course, now this is being violated. When ICE agents go and pick up people off the street and there's no due process, they don't take them to court or anything, they put them in detention centers, and some of them are then deported with no due process. It is breaking the law. We have an administration right now that is breaking the law. Again, why is it being allowed? Why? I'm just going to read a little bit more. Key provisions of the 14th Amendment are: it defines citizenship as anyone born or naturalized in the U.S., overturning the Dred Scott decision, which sort of denied blacks, citizenship. So just go back and look. The due process clause, again, ensures that states respect all legal rights owed to a person. Because before, each state, you could travel from one state to another um, and be captured. If you were a slave that had escaped up north, you could be brought back to Louisiana or North Carolina or somewhere in the South, and you could be enslaved again. So, history is an evolving thing. History, we teach it in school, but history doesn't stay in the book. We are living history right now as our Supreme Court. Every time this man takes something to the Supreme Court, like the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship, he is trying to take things back from people who look like me. I personally do not believe that God will allow it. I think he's messing with God right now. And I don't think he understands that. And God is a defender of the downtrodden. He is a defender of the downtrodden. Come unto me, all ye that are laden, burdened, and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. That is scripture. That is God reaching out to those who feel they have nowhere else to go. So when you leave people homeless, you leave people without food, you leave people without medicine, medical care, you're not just messing with them. And I think, again, they're in for their fooling around and finding out moment. I don't know how it will play out for the country again. And I don't know how it will play out for Donald Trump. But he must understand who he's messing with. And those people who cry out to God, those people, the children of God, the people who believe in God, who are taking his name before the living God, taking his name and his deeds before the living God. He must consider that maybe God is giving him a moment to rethink, to repent, to change before destruction. And I'll just stop right there on that because I'm not a preacher. Okay, let's wrap this up. Um, Two people that I absolutely must suggest that you go to YouTube, talk to Siri, talk to Google, and search out. Nikole Hannah-Jones, author of the 1619 Project. Words cannot express what she means to the country right now, to the history, the preservation of history, the evolution of understanding of the history, and of course, for the African American experience. The 1619 Project documents, explains, explores when the first um, ship landed in America with slaves. That was 1619. And she points out that that was before the Mayflower. Okay. So I think the Mayflower was 1620, but 1619. So anyway, her project is fascinating, but beyond her project, her just having her talk about what's going on right now and putting context to it and explaining it in ways ways that are understandable. You can go to YouTube. She's on there. If you just Google her name again, Nikole Hannah-Jones, 1619 Project. Um, there's a powerful interview that she did with busboys and poets. Um, just Google that and or go to YouTube and type that in and make some time because in this day and age you can't say you don't know stuff because the information is right there at your fingertips. All you have to do is search it out. And you can do it in the privacy of your own home, and no one has to know that it unless they're, of course, like my things are, all of my stuff has been hacked, so they know what I'm doing, whoever's hacking it. But you can just Google and you can search this information out for yourself. You don't have to wait to be taught in school. Okay. So look for Nicole Hannah Jones. And then Jasmine Crockett, representative from Texas. You know, she just announced that she's running for the Senate, the U.S. Senate, from Texas. And she has a long, hard road ahead of her. If you have not heard the name Jasmine Crockett, representative, you have been asleep and you need to wake up. But Jasmine Crockett is running for Senate, and I send out all of my prayers and well wishes, and I hope that she um, is victorious and wins that spot. Um, because her voice is a voice that is much needed on the national level. Her courage is much needed. Her perseverance is much needed right now. Um, the attacks on her have already begun. I think she announced early in the week, last week. Um, and I'm sure after watching, she was a participant in Kamala Harris's campaign, going all around the country to help that campaign. So she is no stranger to attacks. She's prepared, she's ready. But that doesn't mean that prayer, sending out those good prayers for her well-being, um, is not a good thing to do. So let's do that. Let's remember to do that. Remember her name. Remember her aspirations. Pray prayers of protection, and that kind of thing over her. Um, and so I think I will leave it there. Um, Now, for the real reason for the season, again, find some time uh, with all that's going on, find some time to enjoy your family. I was able to make snowman with my two granddaughters um, when it snowed here a couple days ago. That was absolutely fun. And we had a great loss when their grandfather passed away a few months ago. And so it's wonderful when we have some time, some happy time together. We just had a family member celebrate her birthday, so that was fun. And I just want to suggest to everyone, just find some time to do the things that make you happy. Um, and some of the stuff in the news, it feels like it's at your door, if you watch news the way I do. But it's not. And God is still in control. And remind yourself of that. And do some of the things that make you happy. It may be going to a park. It may be going on a long walk. It may be having a glass of wine with your girlfriends, or going shopping. Going to the mall, strolling through the stores. At Christmas time, remember those who are less fortunate. The Salvation Army kettle, the red kettles, you don't see them the way you used to see them. But remember those. Remember to donate when you can, what you can. Because it's not always about money. Or sometimes you can give your time, or sometimes you can give your concern and your care. Um, a lot of the young people are very good at giving care and concern on social media. They make these videos just about life, and to me, they say the most wonderful things. Um, or they do dances. They may be singing or dancing, but they make moments, you know, um, of happiness, you know. So do whatever you can to take care of yourself. Enjoy the Christmas season. Um, I always have my movies that I watch. I watch The Miracle on 34th Street every year on Thanksgiving Day because of the Macy's parade. I have my traditions. Um, and then I watch Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase, that crazy movie. And A Christmas Carol down. As we get closer to Christmas, I have a list. Jingle All the Way with Sinbad and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Um, so do the things that make you happy. Love on your family. Pray for people who are being detained. Don't turn away and not do anything because you never know when it will be somebody that you know. And wrong is wrong, whether it's done to someone you know or who you don't know. What pains me, and I pray about it all the time, is the little children who are separated from their parents. Sometimes their parents are snatched right out of the cars in front of them, and their mamas are knocked on the ground. They witnessed this. And sometimes they're taken to detention, the children. And I always think about how no one ever goes back after they've done these things to say to the child or to the parents even, we're sorry. We were wrong. We should not have done that. If you've ever been wrongly accused of a thing, um, you will understand what I'm talking about. Um, when no one ever comes to say, we shouldn't have said that, we shouldn't have done that to you, we were wrong, we're sorry. When no one ever says that, much like the comments that the president, he continues to make about Black women, low IQ, he calls us. Because when he calls Jasmine low IQ, or he calls Ilhan Omar garbage. Lisa Cook, he was attacking her for a while of the Federal Reserve. He's been attacking Letitia James. Low IQ, he says about Black women and women of color. And the of color piece, I just really, specifically, he attacks Black women. I don't know what that's about. But he never comes back to say, I shouldn't have said that. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up on this edition. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. I'm wishing you and your family the most awesome Christmas season that that you can have. I hope you get everything from Santa that you want, and that the season is everything that you wanted it to be. Thank you for tuning in today. This has been the Christmas edition of Faith Family and political affairs.